Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven. I'm a pharmacist. I own 52 units of real estate and I help coach people to buy their first multifamily deal. So today I want to talk about how I went from broke to a millionaire in under 10 years. So when I graduated pharmacy school back in 2013, I was $250,000 in student debt. I was making a little over $100,000 a year as a pharmacist, and I basically had no money in my account. And I remember I had 6 months to start getting my life stabilized before I had to start making student loan payments. And my average student loan payment was about $2,000 a month. And I remember it was like 7.5% interest rate on average, 250K, and I had 6 months to really get my life situated. So I remember getting my job, felt overwhelmed. I'm in massive debt. I'm making 100K, which is good money, but it didn't feel like I was making good money because I knew I had $250,000 of student debt. So I remember my focus was to just work as much as possible. I didn't do overtime or anything like that, but if opportunity arose, I did do a little bit of overtime, but I just would work as much as I could, and then I would keep my expenses as low as possible because I still felt like a broke college student. And I kind of kept that mentality for a very long time, which allowed me to save more money. It allowed me to invest my money, and it allowed me to eventually pay off my student debt 4 years later. So during the first 4 years, so 2013 to 17, I just focused on getting jobs that paid me more. So I job hopped. I remember I job hopped and went from about 120K up to about 140K, then went up to 170K because the job happened to do a market analysis and then we all got bumped up in terms of pay. So now that I'm making more, I didn't just take the money I made extra and like buy a new car. I didn't rent a nice apartment. I literally just drove the same car that I had. I was fortunate that my dad, as a graduation gift, bought me a used BMW that was like 3 years old for about 25K. And I drove that car, and I had my old car, which was a used 2000 white Camry Solara, and my dad bought that for me as well. And I kind of drove those two cars for a little bit, and eventually I ended up selling my Solara because it just was a waste to have two cars, and had my BMW. So I was fortunate that I was given the BMW, but I would have not bought this BMW or got this BMW had I had to buy it myself, and had I had to have a car payment on it because I didn't want to have a car payment. If I wasn't getting this car as a graduation gift, I would have just kept driving my two-door Solara for as long as possible because I don't want a car payment. I don't want to have another liability over my head. So despite going from 120 to 170K, I didn't lifestyle inflate. I didn't upgrade my car. I didn't upgrade my living situation. From 2013 to I was living in a room for rent that I paid like $500 a month for. In 2015, I actually got a job near home, so I got to live with my parents for a few years. And thanks to that lower living expense, it helped me save money to, like I said, I could invest more money in my 401k. I could have an emergency fund, and I could pay off my student debt aggressively. And that's what I did. So in 4 years, I paid off my student debt aggressively. I probably maxed out my 401k for about maybe 2-3 years at that point. And then that's all I really had. So now, once again, I continued to job hop and moved up the corporate ladder. So I went to about 180, 200K range as a pharmacy, director. And once again, I made more money. I didn't lifestyle inflate, but what I did do was I was able to, because I didn't spend much and because I made more money, I didn't lifestyle inflate. I was able to save more money. And now that my student debt was done, I was able to save up for 10% down on a house. So I want to save 10% down for a primary residence where I would live in, and I would rent out the other rooms to get more money to help cover my costs so that I can keep my costs low. Because I was used to only spending like either living at home for free or spending $500 to live there. But if I house hacked the property, it would allow me to own this house, become a landlord, learn to manage tenants, build appreciation, have principal pay down, have a little bit of a tax write-off with your primary residence. And I knew real estate could help me build wealth. So I put 10% down a property, rent out each room for $3,000 each, or $1,000 each for $3,000 total, and ended up covering my mortgage. I had to pay for property tax, insurance, HOA, utilities, all that good stuff. And that's when my network really started to skyrocket, and probably when I was on my path to becoming a millionaire, because every year that property appreciated on average about $80,000. And so, once again, once I bought a house, ironically, I got even more frugal and cheaper because I felt like I was poor because I was obligated to this mortgage every single month. So once I bought a house, I cut down on unnecessary spending on material goods like clothes, shoes, all this stuff. Like I went through a phase where I was buying a lot of that, but I still kept the budget of what I was buying. I wasn't going crazy. And a lot of the clothes that I wear today and own today, I bought 10 years ago. So I still kind of wear that same clothes. But I basically saved up for another 10% down. Once again, increased my income, kept my expenses the same, and bought another house hack where I put 10% down, rented out the master bedroom, or lived in the master bedroom, rented out the other bedrooms. I had a duplex at that point. So I rented out the bottom unit to some college students, and in my upper unit, I rented out the individual bedrooms to some, new working professionals. And once again, I remember I collected about almost $5,500 a month, which covered my mortgage. I just covered property tax, insurance, HOA, utilities, all that good stuff. So I think at that point, that was 2019 when I bought my second house hack. And probably in 2020 or 2019, that's probably when I really crossed my $1 million net worth. And like I said, I didn't really do anything crazy or anything. All I did was I worked. I focused on job hopping to increase my income, and I kept my expenses as low as possible. So my biggest expense in my life was my living expense. So if I had to pay rent, I just would rent a room for $500 to $1,000, and I lived at home when I could because my job was near home. Or if I did buy a house, when I did buy a house, I kept my living expense lower by renting out the rooms. So yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, you have no privacy, but I was in my 20s. I didn't mind. And it really laid a foundation for me in my 30s. Like today, in my 30s, would I want to live with somebody? Probably not. I want privacy. I have a girlfriend, fiance, now wife, and I don't want to deal with that anymore. But I sacrificed 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, house hacking a property, living in a room, or living at home. And that inconvenience over 10 years lowered my expense and allowed me to save more money to pay off my student debt, allowed me to save money to invest in a 401k, allowed me to save money to put as a 10% down payment, which allowed me to then buy a second house and a third house, and so on. So it's a really simple formula. That's really it. Just job hop to make more money, keep your expenses exactly the same as if, just imagine you're a broke college student and maintain that for 10 years. Whatever money you have left over, you want to invest it. Max out your 401k. You can do IRA, save for a 10% down payment on a duplex, triplex, fourplex, wherever you're at. And then buy a property, then save up another 10% to buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex. And you do that for 10 years, you'll lay such a strong financial foundation, and it starts to compound. So for me, I did this, and now what happens? All my single family homes built up a lot of equity. I did a huge cash out refinance, pulled out a lot of money. Now my properties are cash flow negative, but I pulled out that money. What did I use that money for? I bought a 26 unit apartment complex in Oklahoma because it's cheaper, a 20 unit apartment complex in Oklahoma because it's cheaper, and a mobile home park in Alabama because it's cheaper. So now I'm trading up. I'm elevating from single family homes up to multifamily, and I bought this multifamily using equity from real estate. So none of my own money directly. But now I have to support this negative cash flow with my W-2 job. So that's why it's key to have a good W-2 job hop to make more money, and keep your expenses low throughout this whole process. And at that point, I was able to buy a 26 unit for $500,000, put $300,000 of renovation, which I used from the equity I pulled out from my single family homes. And then from there, I was able to renovate the units, raise the rents. And when I raised the rents, I raised my net operating income. And when I raised my net operating income, assuming the same cap rate, I was able to double the value of this apartment complex. So I'm all in for $800,000. It's worth $1.6 million today. So I forced $800,000 of appreciation over 2.5 to 3 years after I've renovated it, after I got new tenants in, and after I lowered my expenses. So it's stabilizing an asset. So now literally, it took me maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 years to become a millionaire. But once it starts to compound, I pulled that money out and I used that money to go make me almost another $1 million on this one apartment complex. And you multiply that by 2 apartments, and then my mobile home park I lost money on. You're not going to win them all, but that's how it starts to stack, right? And everything, my foundation for my wealth today, $6.6 million net worth, 52 units of real estate. My foundation is 3 core principles. Increase your W-2 income by job hopping and moving up the corporate ladder. So for me, I was a pharmacist. I job hopped to another hospital to become a pharmacist that was paid more because the hospital paid more. Then I became a pharmacy director, which paid more. And then you just job hop until you find the highest paying job possible. Because my mind is, I'm going to be working for 8 hours a day. Might as well get paid the most I could, assuming it's not overly stressful, right? And full disclosure, becoming pharmacy manager, director, it's more stressful, but it's pros and cons. Keep your expenses as low as possible. Imagine you're a poor college student for at least 10 years. Rent a room, live at home, house hack. Do that. Do all 3. I did all 3. Do that for as long as possible. And then from there, use your money to go invest. So, pick an investment you like and invest. For me, I did all the above. I maxed out my 401k. Because they just take it straight from my paycheck. I was able to save for a down payment on a property, 10% down. And then they house hack and then repeat that again. So if you do this formula, basically increase your income, keep your expenses as low as possible, basic expense being your living expense, save that money, whatever money you have left over, go invest it in stocks, real estate, and then let those compound, right? Like real estate will build wealth a lot faster. That's why I chose real estate. Stocks take like 30 years to compound. Real estate takes about maybe 10 to 15 years to compound if you do it right. So you can do it in double the time. And I wanted to retire early. That's why I chose real estate. And now that I have real estate and I have a 401k, I'm also trying to invest money in like a business for myself. So like, creating YouTube or mentorship, coaching. So, things take a lot of time. But you just have to do something very simple, very basic. What I describe you is very basic. Job hop to make more money. Keep your expenses as low as possible. Basic expense being living at home or your living expense. So keep that as low as possible and then invest the rest. And you just do that for 10 years. Now you look extraordinary. But that's all I did in literally 10 years. And I want to continue to do that. Even today, like I said, I cash flow 10K a month. I'm taking home 12K a month. I'm probably taking home 22K. And my living expense is like maybe $6,000 a month, which is like still relatively low relative to how much I make because I have a primary residence now. But if I literally rented out 2 rooms in my house, it for $1,000 each, it would cut my expense to $5,000 a month. But now I have to deal with tenants, and right now I don't want to. Or if I Airbnb out my room, maybe I can make $2,000 per room. So it would cut my expense to $4,000. So there's ways to do it, but it depends on what season you're in. Like I've been doing this for a long time, so now I can choose a little bit of lifestyle. But in the beginning, I didn't. I didn't mind renting a room. I didn't mind living at home. I didn't mind renting out my rooms to other tenants, despite owning my own house and dealing with that inconvenience. So that's all it really is. The key message is just do something very plain, very boring, very simple. Like I was listening to Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's just been talking about paying off no bad debt for like 35 years. It's so simple, yet no one does it because everyone's in credit card debt. Like literally just don't have a credit card, pay everything cash, debit card. But if you never have a credit card, you'll never be in credit card debt. Like it's so simple. Like same with losing weight. Just go to the gym and eat less. But people struggle with that, right? So the things that make you successful are very simple, but what makes it hard is doing it for a long period of time. Like, can you do it for 10 years straight? And I did. And time flies. So, and don't get me wrong. Like now that I've been doing it for 10 years plus, I can now like start to like slowly lifestyle inflate. But for me, my goal is to retire as early as possible. That's why I know $1 that I spend on something I don't need is one less dollar that I can invest that helps me retire in the future. So that's kind of my mindset. But anyways, hopefully you learned how I went from broke, negative $250K of student debt to $6 million plus net worth, over 10, 12 years. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully you found value from this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you want to buy multifamily real estate with some guidance and some mentorship, check out my link down below. Otherwise, See you in the next one. Thank you.